Building Men is brought to you by Finish the Race Apparel, FTRapparel.com, the creators of all things Building Men, and by Become Stronger Industries, become-stronger.com, the creators of handmade steel maces, hammers, and other badass equipment.
So when we think about ancestral wounds, we think about this ripple effect from, our grandfather and our grandmother, and even, back on through time, how, each of their parents, grandparents, how their wounds through life affected how they were raised, and how it is our responsibility. Paul CHEK says responsibility is the price we pay for awareness, and how we're able to bring awareness to our wounds and to our trauma and heal those.
You're listening to the Building Men podcast with Dennis and Anthony Miralda, brothers on a mission
to help you become the strongest version of yourself, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically.
And we're live, brother.
That's live. I feel good.
You look good. You're wearing pink today.
I know.
You look good in pink.
It's a little cold in here, so I feel like
your nipples are hard.
I know.
Your nipples, you're cutting glass.
Oh yeah. Doink, doink, turkey's done.
I haven't heard that one before.
That's
really good. That should be your tagline.
Yeah.
Pew, pew. So to start with, you mentioned on the way in it was a frustrating car ride in for you this morning. So can you expand on that?
Yeah, it didn't have to be, but it was. So I'm now on my third car mount that I bought, right? Because I want to record. I like to record videos in the car more for myself. I like to do them. It's almost like a way to journal for me.
Okay.
And for me, the spoken journal is a lot better because I feel like it's more healing, because hearing my voice feels more powerful because I don't speak that much. And part of, something that I'm working on is opening up more and speaking more and talking. And so I opened this one up and it was like $35, and I was like, oh, this one has to work because I got one of the ones that sticks to the car, right? And it has like a magnet, and I like those magnet ones, but it didn't stick to the car. I got one that was supposed to stick to the windshield, and that one didn't work. So I was like, no more ones that stick. That's not my thing. So I'm gonna get the one that goes into the vent in the car. I'm like, this has got to work. I'm really excited. I can't wait. So I'm all jacked up. I'm about to leave, and I'm putting it in there, and the neck of it was long. So when I would stick the phone on it, it was too far away from the vent, so it would move, so it wouldn't actually stay up. And so I'm driving for the first 15 minutes. I'm like, this can't actually be happening. Like, there's just no way that this one also doesn't work, because now it's in there, but it won't stay in, and it'll keep moving. And I just felt I was so viscerally upset on my way in. And all of a sudden now everything started weighing in. I'm like, well, I'm a fucking piece of... Why did I spend that much money? I don't even have enough money to spend. I don't have a job. What are you doing with your life? You're a fucking idiot. All of this negative emotion and everything else started to come up from the car mount not working on there. And literally, it was unbelievable. I had to luckily it was an hour trip, because if it was only 30 minutes, I would have needed some moments to breathe and calm down because I was that pissed off.
So how did you get out of it? You were in this spiral, and now everything is pissing you off. The guy in front of you that has his blinker on for too long.
I was white-knuckling the fucking steering wheel because of the goddamn car mount. And I'm like, oh my fucking God. And I guess the first thing that I started to do was recognize what was happening, right? First of all, it's not the fucking car mount, right? There was other things that were going on. I was pissed off just about how I drank too much over the week, and that I didn't do the things that I wanted to do, and the car mount was just the thing that put it over the edge. But I had time to recognize that and be aware of it, and then I was able to just be like, it's a fucking car mount. Who gives a shit? I could hold my damn phone and take a goddamn video if I wanted to, but I felt like I needed the thing in order for it to happen. So I was able to breathe through it and able to kind of start to think logically about it for a second, which that took shorter than normal, right? Okay. So I thought it was going to be, normally I would take that with me for the next 2 days, and I'd be pissed off at everyone,
Right.
and someone would say something to me and I'd flip out, or it would come up in other areas of my life. So it was definitely the awareness of it that I could look at it from a 10,000 foot view and be like, all right, dude, like, that's enough. Like, take it easy with the carb out. But yeah, so I'm not gonna purchase another carb out for a little bit.
Or duct tape.
I swear to God, I got Gorilla Glue, and I know, that's what I need.
Like, put on like a special hat.
Like I could wear a helmet with a thing attached to it, and then I could just video me.
I'm picturing Vince Clartho from Ghostbusters.
Oh my God, that's exactly.
It's like the helmet that he was wearing.
That's what I need.
Some. Yes, have some. So the first thing that I thought about as you were talking was suction cup. Suction cups always disappoint me.
Every time.
They just always disappoint me. Things are supposed to be powerful suction cup based things, and you you lick it,
slap it. You're supposed to wipe it with an alcohol wipe. There was this whole procedure, and that was the first one they had was the suction cup. That was on there for like 4 days, and then it fell off. And that, I can't. So then I go to the magnet, right? And I'm like, so this one, it doesn't stick to the windshield. It sticks to like a part of your car.
Yeah.
That one didn't even stick for a second. I couldn't even use it for 1 second. And it had the magnet. I still have the magnet on the back of my phone. So, like, it has the little thing. And this looks legit. What is it called?
Good.
A skosh? It sounds like something you'd call, like, in between your balls and asshole. It was near my skosh. Just a skosh. And
are you sure you're putting it in the right spot then? Should it be on your phone, or should you bend over?
I have no idea. I didn't read the directions. I guess that was my fault. But then I'm like, so then what can't fail? And the last option is to go into the vents. And once I went in and it didn't work, that was it for me. Well, it's all.
Listen, everyone has their problems in life, and we shouldn't be comparing our traumas and our problems with other people.
Right.
But I could see that this had an impact on you this morning, and I could relate. There were times where in my old house, the laundry room had louver doors, and the one louver door was kind of jacked up. We rigged it up, and every once in a while I would open up to put something into the laundry, and the door would fall off, and it was a heavy louver door. And then as I'm trying to put it on, I would like break the light bulb or knock something else over, and my frustration, because I was really angst and like having this feeling, it led to like 7 different problems.
Yeah.
And then the door would fall on my foot. There were times I just had to like turn around and like.
You just want to
hit or I don't know,
ruin something,
yeah.
and I felt like it showed up, and it always happened again in that moment that you are having like. So many things are culminating in your life, and all of a sudden that same thing happens. That always happens, but you have the patience in that moment, and it happens again. You just want to fucking rip the door off, and
so we'll get some therapeutic advice from our guest today. He might be able to help us through the trauma that we've experienced, both with the louver doors, with the suction cups, with our scooshes, with our scooshes.
Scooshes, my skosh.
And
just a skosh. It's
he's a mind-body integration coach, facilitator, and energy worker. You met him at Training Camp for the Souls, which we'll dive into today. Please welcome to the Building Men podcast, Nate Baumgardner. Welcome, Nate, to the podcast, my friend.
Hey, thank you for having me on, brothers. It's beautiful to be here today. Yeah, your story, Anthony, reminded me of a couple of weeks ago, actually about a month ago, right before the retreat. I drove out to New Jersey, where my brother lives, for his wedding, and I was, it's a 26-hour drive here from Morrison, Colorado, out to Cape May, and I'm outside of Philly. I've been driving for 14 hours, and I hit bumper-to-bumper traffic, and I'm tired, I'm pissed off, and I'm in this like deep space of aggravation. I feel myself constricting. I feel this like tension in my solar plexus. Just want to like hit the wheel, and I come back to like the low and slow breath that Mark England talks about, and I just started doing this deep breath into my belly, into my diaphragm, up into my chest, and then long, slow exhale. And for the entire 45 minutes that I was stuck in traffic there outside of Philly, I just continued with this breath. And by like the first 10 minutes, I found myself in this space of, peace and calm and equilibrium. And part of me was like, well, I shouldn't feel this way. I'm in traffic. Like, I'm not moving. Like, my dog's behind me, like, whining in the back seat because he wants to go out and pee. And like, but I found this space of just through breath, finding the peace and the calm. And it's really powerful what we're able to accomplish with our breath, with our awareness, when we're able to bring the awareness to our emotions, to our anger, our fear, our grief, our sadness, and be with it, have the bravery to be with what we're experiencing, which is a lot of what we did in training camp for the soul a month ago now that we have finished that.
Before we get into training camp for the soul, we have South Philly native Tim Novak here. Tell us a little bit about South Philly traffic.
Let me tell you something. Oh, listen, it is no fucking joke. That shit is legit. And I'll tell you what, bumper to bumper every fucking time I'm on 4th Ave, I can't fucking deal with these people. And the fucking Birds lost the other day.
To my Giants.
Man, don't even get me started. I didn't think you'd bring that up, but bud. No, I ain't about that. Revamp everything. We got to fire everybody. I don't give a fuck. It's terrible.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate you.
No problem.
Jumping on real quick. So that's Tim Novak. That's Anthony's South Philly guy.
The Eagles?
The Eagles. The Birds. The fucking Birds.
So, Anthony, you haven't truly talked about your experience in training camp for the soul. And before we jumped on, I said, would you be willing to talk with us and even ask Nate some questions about training camp for the soul? So talk to us a little bit about that experience and how you met Nate out in Colorado.
So one of the reasons why, we spoke about it before we left, and you remember this, Nate, that Anat basically told us, she invited us to not speak about it for the first 30 days, to just use our integration. So like just try to apply it into certain areas of our life. And that's going to tell people what we did there, not by us explaining to others what we did there. And that's really hard to do, right? Because I know how I live my life is I almost want validation of why I'm doing something. So I want to tell them how awesome it was so that they would say, oh my God, that was so worth it for you to do it. Such a good idea. Oh man, that was awesome. And I'm like, fuck, this is going to be hard. So we even spent time there talking about how we would tell people why we're like, how we would explain to them that we're not telling them. And that was part of a discussion that we had. And that was hard to do because you have to be like, so what we came up with was, it was an amazing experience, but we're still working on things right now. Like we're still kind of letting it settle in. We're still working on these, integration processes that's going through, but I'll explain it to you at some point. But for right now, like I'm still kind of understanding what's happening. It was a powerful experience. But I came across Nate, and when I got there, man, I was more than nervous. Nervous is an understatement about how I was feeling. Like I knew that it was the only thing that I really knew was that it was gonna be uncomfortable, that I was gonna have to look inward, and that I was gonna have to dive deep into these demons that have been in my life and why they're there in the first place. And that's basically all that I knew. And I saw Nate come up, and again, Nate, with the beard and the shaved head, and I'm like, dude, this guy's a scary motherfucker. And you came up and you just opened up your arms. You're like, you had no idea who the hell I was. And you're like, brother. You're like, how you doing, man? You gave me a hug. And I was like, and everybody gave me a hug there. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm like this. I'm like tensed up, and I'm like, and he mentioned that he listened to the podcast and he loved Building Men. He was like, oh man, I'm a huge fan. I'm like, fuck, that's crazy.
I have a fan out here. Look at
fan.
this.
What? We're in fucking the middle of Colorado. I don't know what the hell's going on. But that's how I first met him. And sure enough, and after he said that to me, we were in our small groups that we had. I don't know how deep we're going to go into this, but I know one of the powerful things for me was allowing, like we had our intentions, like what were our intentions for being there. And part of my intention was to not be anything, to lean in, like basically be as uncomfortable and scared, but be open with how scared I was. And so anytime we had a discussion, I was like, I'm going to be the first one to speak. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to make myself so fucking uncomfortable in this moment. And I'm going to see what happens, because I've never done that. and I didn't die, and I didn't fucking, and I fell down and they picked me up, and Nate was one of the people that was with me during my, during these moments that I was expressing more than I've ever expressed to anyone in my entire life. And I could argue that Nate knows me better than most people do in my life right now because of the experiences that we had with each other in Training Camp for the Soul. And I don't know if you feel like that same connection, but that it was one of those moments that like I was more vulnerable than I've ever been.
100%, brother. Yeah. Like we were essentially in a room for all morning for 4 days in a row, going deep into our childhood trauma, our ancestral trauma, and really facing it, really going into that space where we're acknowledging what our deepest fears are and what those fears and limiting beliefs are rooted in through our past experiences. And I 100% can concur with your assessment that you saw very deep parts of me that I haven't shown anyone before in my life. And in bringing that awareness to these deep fears and moving out on to the other side of them, as Joseph Campbell says, and this is something that Mark Engling quotes very frequently. I know you've had him on the podcast as well, but Joseph Campbell says, any emotion fully felt is bliss. And when you go deep into this emotional space of facing your fears, facing your limiting beliefs, and these emotions that we often shut ourselves off to, you're able to come out on the other side of them with peace, with awareness, and with the ability to bring consciousness to them when you find yourself triggered in ways that bring those up in the future. So yeah, it was extremely powerful for me, both to experience it alongside you and to see the things that you were going through and feel through those alongside of you. So I thank you for that, brother.
What you mentioned, Anthony, one of the intentions that you have was getting uncomfortable, being more comfortable with that, standing up, being the first one. I had a conversation with Julie last night, and I said I thought back to the last year, with Building Men, and the journey that you have gone on, particular in Building Men, is something that I look back with such deep reverence toward. Think about where you were. You were in a really challenging mental spot this time last year. I remember, it was after I was living with you. I was going through my divorce and selling my house. It was a challenging time. And then, think about your 30th birthday party. We had a deep discussion about your mental state during that time. And then I think from that point to where you are now, able to, host a podcast and, put yourself out there in these really uncomfortable situations. It's been, in 1 year, such a huge journey that you've been on. It's really, really cool to see. It's almost been that year, and that was probably the lowest point in my life was a year ago, around this time. And again, just such a mental state and contemplating suicide on multiple occasions, and to where, and looking at our TCS journey when we were there, like I think about how I went there being so I talked about this too when we were there, that I was worried. On the way in, we had like a 2.5 hour bus trip, and I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to say when they ask us to say who we are? And I'm trying to say it in my head, so I'll say the right thing about who I am. And I'm like, okay, I'm from New Jersey. My name's Anthony. I host a podcast. What's something cool about myself? Let me think. So I'm trying to figure out what to talk about just with me. Now fast forward to the end of that, and I stood up wearing a grandma costume in front of 40 people
and stood there and said all of my declarations, things that like my I am statements, like who I am and my experience in training camp for the soul in front of everyone.
Yeah.
They all sat down and I stood up in front of all of them and said this proudly and more confidently than I've probably done anything in my entire life, sober as a bird. I can't even tell you the last time I've done that maybe in my life. I have no idea. The last time that I did that I was sober, that's when I had my panic attack, and that was it. And I'm standing up there and I literally looked around. I was like, holy shit, like I'm here right now. Yeah. And I'm able to do this. And I know, Nate, you had some serious like growth that happened in there, but what was something from TCS, just because I want to stay here for a little bit because we both had this shared experience. What was some of the bigger things that you gained out of that from yourself, that you took away, that you were able to kind of integrate right away into your life?
The first thing is the affirmation. So I, went back through my notes, and through each of the hot seats, we go through these I am statements that you mentioned, and we write them out, and alongside that, any actions that we correlate with them. So I went through all of my notes from the week and put together this long list of about 22 affirmations, and for the past 30 days have been writing those out in front of the mirror, taking that deep belly breath, and then writing them, reading them, breathing, and going through each of them and really feeling what the sensation is of I am a warrior king. I stand in my truth. I rise to my soul's calling. All of these things that I wish to embody in my life. And that has been really powerful I've been going through a lot of shifts over the past year, much like you. It was October 2020. I work in emergency management, and we went virtual in March of 2020, fully virtual. And I had a lot more time to just sit with myself and think about what I wanted from my life, and realized just how out of alignment the work that I was doing was with really what I wanted from my life, from what I expect of myself. And I had this deep experience with plant medicine where, it really called me into my integrity. And within that path, I joined Enlifted, training camp for the soul. I started in the path to becoming a CHEK practitioner, and really realized that I wanted to become a coach and to embody that, to help my community heal, to help the world heal. And so the training camp for the soul retreat helped to bring me into facing a lot of the fear that I have, and a lot of the childhood wounding, ancestral wounding that I have around money, around my conception of myself as an entrepreneur, as a creator, as someone who can really take advantage of and take responsibility for their own life, rather than just letting life happen to them and be that passive observer. So that has been a really powerful shift in taking action towards that, in leading workshops, in doing this healing work while I'm still working in emergency management, to help support the people who I work alongside in helping them heal through a lot of the wounding that they experience in dealing with disaster survivors, and in the trauma bonding that occurs when, you're out in the field and working with, people who are one of the worst days of their life, and you have to support them or I have to support them in figuring out what they need to do next and how to apply for federal assistance, and in, taking that next step towards rebuilding. So that was a powerful shift for me in reconceptualizing who I am and how I can better take responsibility for my emotions and my actions in the world.
Nate, I appreciate you saying that, and I'll go back to our initial discussion, Anthony, and I'll bring this back to what Nate said. Think about over the last year and a half, the way the world has changed, right? We're now, a lot of what we can do, we recognize, is via Zoom meetings. 2 years ago, we wouldn't have had this opportunity based on our life experiences to be talking with Nate today, who's out in California or Colorado, but because things have shifted in such a way, there's been some avenues that have been opened up. It's been very challenging for people. There's been a lot of mental health things that have gone on. Relationships have struggled, have come to an end. From my own personal experience, a 17-year marriage came to an end during that time because you were able to sit and do that inner work, like you were saying, Nate, to really sit with yourself in those spaces and really consider things. I'll take it back to your initial discussion, Anthony, with the drive in. Think about how much time we waste during the course of a day between our commute and then just the office type things that are going on if we're going into work in a face-to-face capacity where, you come in, you turn on your computer, you sit down, you get your cup of coffee, you go bullshit in the main lobby for a couple minutes wherever you're working. You go to the bathroom, you come back.
Get the TPS reports.
The TPS. Did you know we're changing the cover sheet on the TPS report? Did you know that this is happening? Can you do a Bill Lumberg? Can you do a little Bill Lumberg?
Yeah. There's a lot of stretching.
Peter,
I'm going to need you to go ahead and come in on Tuesday at 9.
Okay, that'd be great.
That'd be great.
Peter, what's happening?
What's happening? And he's just
Go ahead and wear a Hawaiian shirt on Friday. That'd be great. So there's a lot of that happens.
Right.
But when you don't have Bill Lumberg coming to you and talking to you about the TPS report, then you have an opportunity, like during those moments, to really go inside and think about shit that's going on in your head and really consider it. So Nate, you brought up that point. During that time, you had to go with some virtual things. Was that part of your renaissance, I would say, where you had to really think about what was going on in between your ears?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, sitting in my own environment, giving myself just the space to not have to drive to work, to not have to do all of these things, be in, regular interaction face to face with the people I work with, which really I found myself in a space of inauthenticity, needing to, be this person who is like, a lot of people in emergency management are ex-military, are, first responders and have this very type A personality, which, to be frank, I'm not. I'm sensitive. I'm very, I'm open to a lot of the energy, and I'm an empath. And that puts me in this space where I have to be this, chest puffed out, this guy who is, ultimately out of my integrity. So that gave me this space to really sink into thinking about what it is that I want. And so, yeah, I had this come to Buddha moment where, I took 200 micrograms of LSD, put the face mask on, and just laid in my bed for 5 hours and was like, oh, fuck. It's like, oh, fuck. And had this, this deep catalyst, which, on a macro level, we all went through during the pandemic, of things like your relationship, Dennis. Everything that was pushed below the surface came to bear, and we were able to see and to really have to cope with our relationships and the aspects of ourselves that were out of integrity, that were out of authenticity, and to deal with them. And sometimes, to bring it back to office space, we have to take that printer out into the woods and have a die motherfucker die moment where we smash that thing to bits and we get out our emotions. We really express all that is buried inside of us.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
I want to watch that movie again. Why do random fucking movies all the time come up in these conversations?
Well, that's an iconic.
No, you're right. It's not a random movie. That's a legendary movie. And I was Bill Lumberg for Halloween.
We need to post it up on the Buildingmen Instagram
it's so
page.
Good.
It's
I'm literally doing
costume.
the stretch. But I think about, and I spoke about this before, Nate. I'm so grateful that the pandemic, it's a terrible thing. I get it. But as far as my experience from it, I got exactly what I needed from this. And I don't think I would have ever even noticed any of the things that I'm noticing now if it wasn't for this, because the world was put on standstill for a little while and I had no option but to look inward, because I didn't have a job to fill up my life. I didn't have all this other activity that was going on was just stopped. And so you just had time, and nothing but time, and nothing but time with yourself. And not many people get that. They go their whole life without ever having that amount of time to just look at themselves. And we were kind of forced into that. And granted, there's a lot of people who weren't so lucky, right? And that's another thing, is that I wake up every day and I'm grateful that I'm alive and I'm here and I was able to get on the other end of depression. Because a lot of people weren't so fortunate when they had the pandemic hit and all they had was time, and in their head was a scary place, and then they numbed themselves to not be in that place. And it's unfortunate that they couldn't get out of that. And so, I want to recognize that as well. But part of what I wanted to, changing gears a little bit, I just wanted to say that because that just resonated with me. But Dennis and I we realized that every time we get on with somebody, they talk about plant medicine. Everyone that we talk to has done mushrooms, has experimented with plant medicine in some capacity. Every person. And we have never done that. No. So we are virgins beyond belief. We don't know. We're kind of getting an idea from hearing everyone talk about it, but we don't even know how our first experience would go or what that would look like.
Right. Is it in aisle 7 at Walgreens?
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess Whole Foods is where we go, or it's...
Is it between like the hibiscus and the
it's
cactuses?
Near the broccoli sprouts and the shiitake mushrooms. So like 101, plant medicine, like first of all, where does your headspace need to be going into this? I would say, would that be the first area you would start with, is like, where are you at prior to this? And then what do you do to even start with that? Where do you go? Where do you look? Who do you connect with? Who do you want to be around? Like, what are these, things, this checklist almost?
For sure, yeah. Well, to first come back to you saying you've never been sat with plant medicine, I'm going to correct you. You actually have. At the retreat, we had a cacao ceremony.
That's right.
And that may not be a psychedelic, but that is a heart-opening substance. And you can actually find that at Whole Foods, most likely. You can find some, ceremony grade cacao, most likely, and brew yourself some cacao. And within plant medicine, we talk about set and setting. And set is your internal space. Set is where your head is at. Set is where your body is at. And your head space, your heart space, your body space. And you want to be in a solid grounding in what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and to have some practices to set that. I do some intention setting where I think about what it is that I want to call forth within the experience when I sit with plant medicine. And I also call in my spirit guides, my ancestors, spirit, to provide me with protection, to provide me with guidance through the experience. Because when we do plant medicines, we open ourselves up to being more energetically vulnerable to the outside world, and to the energetic world, to the spirit world, where there are things that can come and attach themselves to us that we may not want. So it's a consideration to take into account. And then there's setting. Then there's your external environment, the people that you're around. And it's always good to have someone with you who you trust. I've done plant medicines alone, with my dog, who is a great trip sitter. But it's good to have someone who you trust, who's willing to hold that space for you. And if you're going through a deep emotional, space that is challenging, that is bumpy, to be willing to talk through and feel through with you what you're experiencing. So that's like a 30-minute, 1-minute primer just into where you can start. And cannabis is a plant medicine that if you use with intention can bring you into that heart open space where you're feeling the anxiety is really bringing things to your awareness that you are submerging, that you're pushing down, and you can work through in experiencing paranoia and experiencing anxiety aspects of yourself that you may not have access to in your everyday level of consciousness.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about it, and I know with marijuana or cannabis, like, we talked about this with Ryan Sprague before about how I would have anxiety a lot of the times, right? I would start to panic. And one of the things I'm realizing more and more is that I was resisting that feeling, that emotion that was coming up, rather than just letting it kind of free flow through me. I wasn't like surrendering into what I was doing. I was trying to still be in this. It's almost like you have to give up that control a little bit. Like, I feel like my whole life I want to control everything. And with that, I need to be willing to give that up and surrender to whatever the experience is going to be, because it's going to be amazing. And I have to stop trying to dictate how it's going to work or how it's going to move. I don't know if that's kind of makes sense or that's sounds like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it comes back to our hot seats,
yeah.
Where we're going into this deep space of facing our ancestral trauma, facing our childhood trauma, and holding space for ourselves, which is ultimately the space that we come into through plant medicine. And the greater capacity we have to be with what we're going through, the quicker we're able to move through it and find ourselves on the other side of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I could, the more and more that I look into it, the more that I feel like I'm becoming more aware and more open to experiencing something like that. It's just kind of, the more in touch I get with my emotions, the less scary that they seem, because the negative ones aren't negative. They're just all neutral, right? And I can let them go throughout me however I feel necessary. But bring back to Training Camp for the Soul, I was thinking of another powerful experience that I had there was when we separated into the men and women, right? So when it was the men were with the men in that moment. And for me, one of the most powerful experiences was we had to go around and we were basically like, part of our get to know each other type thing is we would walk around and just look at everyone in the eyes, right? So we're circling the room in no particular order and making eye contact with every male in this space, every male. And then he would tell us to stop. Whatever person we were looking at, we'd step to them. And he would give us something to say. Or what he would do is he would tell us to find someone. So like one of the questions, like, find someone that you found intimidating and go up to them and tell them why you found them intimidating. Or someone that you didn't trust, or someone that you had something that you thought about them that ended up not being true. You want to talk about a fucking hard thing to do, especially as a man. And one of my biggest fears is that anytime I disagree with someone or have a conversation with someone, that's going to be confrontational. Yeah. It's going to end in a fist fight. It's going to be this dude looking to fucking fight me after. And so that was like very, very hard for me to do. And we did that, and we spent a lot of time doing that. But how I felt as a man after we did that, like, I've never felt so grounded in my entire life than the moments when we were sitting there and we sat with each other and we looked each other in the eyes, and then we allowed us to still be masculine, but we kind of invited that safe space to, like, talk to me, like, be direct. Look me in the eyes and tell me how you're feeling. And I didn't get those responses that I expected, and it kind of blew me back. And I was like, holy shit, like, I could have these conversations and not end how I thought for some reason it would end. So I don't know how you felt about, or maybe because for me, the masculine part of it was a very big part of it. And I want to kind of sit with that for a little bit and know your experience when we were in that room just with the men, because that felt way different than any other experience we had there.
Absolutely. I loved the session that we had on embracing the divine masculine and in seeing the masculine in each other. And the going from person to person really exemplified for me how much we go through the world and project things from ourselves onto other people. And those things that really are our own fears. I have a fear of conflict, much like you. And in having that container of trust and of vulnerability to be open, it really showed me how much we put on this mask of, I'm afraid of conflict, but that ultimately creates more conflict inside of myself when I don't speak to people in a space of truth, in a space of integrity and authenticity, to tell them how it is that I'm feeling from a compassionate, direct, honest space, which there is a lot of power to when you're able to embody that, to embody the warrior king, to come back to another of the exercises where we just stood and without saying anything, we stood in front of another man and we just looked eye to eye and embodied the warrior, then embodied the king, and shifted between those energies to see how it is that we can embody that fierceness, that ferocity of the warrior, of putting that energy out into the world, but also standing in our king, the sovereign energy that we carry through the world. That was really powerful for me in just being able to call in and embody that, even outside of the container that is very unique that we were in coming into this masculine space, but in how I can bring that to my everyday interactions and be more honest, direct, and to bring in that compassion with that honest and directness so that I don't have that fear of conflict, because I'm confident in my ability to not have it lead to go from 0 to 10 in 5 seconds, and just because I disagree with someone it means I need to fist fight with them. Jordan Peterson has this really great talk of be the monster, but then have the ability to control that monster. It's contained inside of you, and you are sovereign within that, rather than just being this weak person who reacts rather than takes responsibility for the shadow that is contained within you, that is within me.
That's one of my favorite Jordan Peterson things. I've seen that a couple times. He is like, people say we're afraid of that monster inside of us. Don't be that. He is like, no. Be the fucking monster, but then contain it in a way that you can call on it when necessary. You want to have that inside of you. That's such a great point, Nate. I appreciate it. I want to ask you about, you mentioned ancestral wounds, ancestral healing, things like that. I want to get a little more insight into that. You talk about ancestral, that experience. I'm thinking of, Nanny, Pappy, Uncle Eddie, what are you doing here? What are you what does that mean? Talk to the audience a little bit about what you mean when you're using that word.
Sure. So when I think about ancestral healing, I think about, our lineage. We go through all of these things in the present moment that are the ripple effect of how we were raised, of how, the things that my dad experienced when he was 2 years old. He had an adverse reaction to, I believe it was an MMR shot, and he was paralyzed. The entire left side of his body, or right side of his body rather, was paralyzed. And he had to learn to walk and to use his right hand, to do all of these things very slowly. And he was bullied growing up, and he had all of these experiences that to a certain degree created a victim mentality and created a dependence on his parents and on the people around him to do things. And that affected his personality in a specific way that that affected how I was raised. And he was an amazing father. He died 4 years ago in February from an aortal aneurysm. And in seeing how his life affected mine, in seeing how my grandfather's life affected his, who he was raised during the Great Depression. He was put in an orphanage, being the eldest of 8 kids, and seeing the aspects of his his growing up in this orphanage play out in my life, of how I don't want to waste things, of how I'm very I hold on to money rather than spending it freely, seeing it as energy versus feeling like I need to hold on to it, and feeling a sense of scarcity around money is one of my ancestral wounds. And even back to his father, who was abusive, and how that had an impact on his personality, on how he may have been more demure and less confrontational, and how that impacted my father and then impacted me. So when we think about ancestral wounds, we think about this ripple effect from our grandfather and our grandmother, and even back on through time, how each of their parents, grandparents, how their wounds through life affected how they were raised, and how it is our responsibility. Paul CHEK says responsibility is the price we pay for awareness, and how we're able to bring awareness to our wounds and to our trauma and heal those. And that's a large part of what we do in Training Camp for the Soul, is healing these wounds so that we are, stopping that link in the chain, stopping that ripple effect of these negative aspects of our ancestral wounding onto our children, onto the next generation, to bring about a more balanced, a more healed world, to bring, a sense of uplifting, awareness to the next generation.
It's the first time that I've heard it described in that way, Nate, and I appreciate it. People that are listening, we've both gone through this journey, Anthony and I, talking about things that have happened in our past based on how our parents showed up, our father showed up, but it wasn't there. It started before him. It started before our grandfather.
Look at your thing with the kids who are bullying you, right? And dad. So you could look back at that, for example, and that moment right there, how it made you feel. So you go back and you tell yourself what you need to hear that mom and dad didn't say to you. But what you also do is you potentially visit a moment in dad's life that he had this happen to him and he didn't get what he needed, and what was his experience with that. You could take that and keep going deeper and deeper, so now this allows you an area to make sense of why he was the way that he was, and now you have a little more compassion for the person that he became, because he never got this, but you now have that awareness, and once you have that awareness, you can put an end to it, give yourself what you need, heal from it, and now be a completely different person, so you shift generations to come, so no one ever has to go through that.
Absolutely. And what it's doing is it's healing you of that victim mindset, because now you're closing the loop, or you're breaking the chains, like you said, on that specific situation that happened. And now it's not, oh, woe is me. I'm going to stop this from perpetuating into the future, from how I'm going to show up for my kids, and I don't want them to have a story to tell because of the way that I showed up. Yeah. It's really powerful. I'd never heard it explained in that way, but it's the language that we're using and this victim mentality that we collectively have.
With the Enlifted program as well, changing our language, shifting the way that we use our words, and empowering through language, empowering through bringing awareness to these limiting stories. That's why there's so much symbiotic flow between these programs. We change both the limiting beliefs, and then shift the stories that we have towards our reality, and shift the language that we have that impacts our reality. So I think that these things are ultimately all coming together to create a more empowered more, bold, brave, vulnerable generation that is able to relate in a more compassionate, self-aware way. And I, have this grandiose goal that, through the things that y'all are doing with Building Men, what I'm doing with my coaching is ultimately about healing the world, about healing our communities that have this butterfly effect to ultimately heal the world. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in. So
Nate, before we give you an opportunity to share with the audience where they can find you, I just want to make sure that we have an idea of the energy work. We said in the bio that you are an energy worker. What does that mean? Talk to the audience a little bit about what that means to be an energy worker.
Yeah, so I do Reiki, it works with the energy meridians, which are these energy points within our body. You may be familiar with the chakras, and the chakras are just these points of energy that relate to different aspects of our emotion and our ability to act and how we carry ourselves in the world. And when we're able to get these energetic points in our body aligned and flowing in a synchronous way, then we're able to really be who it is that we're meant to be in our lives, and we're able to process a lot of these things that come up. So yeah. I practice Reiki, and a lot of it happens just through the coaching, and it brings us into this understanding of how energy is flowing within our body, and the ways that tying into the language. So, for example, the throat chakra relates to how we communicate, and the heart chakra relates to how we express compassion or lack of compassion. So when we're able to tap into and to get these energy points, these energy centers in our body flowing and moving in a synchronous way, we're able to get them unblocked. Then we're able to have more self-awareness, to have a greater level of consciousness in how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to each other. And Reiki can be done in person, and it can also be done by a distance, by just meditating on another person and sending them that energy to heal them and to heal their experience and their processing of their traumas and what they're experiencing through their life.
So quick shout out to one of our biggest fans. Her name is Jen Finlayson. She does Reiki as well. I just wanted to, I know Jen will be listening to this when it comes out. So absolutely. As soon as it comes out, Jen Finlayson listens right away. So Jen, we love you. I just wanted to give a shout out to Jen Finlayson right now. And she was talking to me about Reiki the first time I met her. And I was like, is that like when Daniel LaRusso was in the semifinals, he gets kicked in the leg and he's laying down screaming in pain, and Mr. Miyagi comes and he claps his hands and
goddamn
them
right
together, and he just like tosses
some fucking
Daniel LaRusso
beautiful
there.
Energy his way.
I needed to get another classic
I know,
movie
you only
reference.
we only had
one. Our quote is 2.
You're right. We have a standard 2.
As I grab the stapler away from Milton, flip it up. That's what Bill Lumberg's best thing is, when he flips up the stapler.
That's my stapler. If I could just go ahead, Milton. I'm gonna go ahead and need you to head into the basement. He's like, no,
I have not get my paycheck.
Yeah, I haven't had my paycheck, and I just wish there's.
So Nate, where can the Building Men audience find you? How can we reach out to you?
Yeah, you can find me at innate.flow on Instagram, where you can book a discovery call. I do one-on-one coaching. I do Reiki sessions, and I'll be putting together a program starting sometime in early 2022, incorporating a lot of the story work, incorporating a lot of the goal setting, helping people to create vision and purpose in their lives, as well as healing these ancestral wounds, the little T and the big T traumas that they have in their lives, to ultimately live the life that they want to, and create the things that they want from a place of authenticity, from a place of truth. So innate.flow on Instagram, and innateflow.co is my website. So those are two places where you can reach out to me if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, or if you just want to learn more about the work that I do.
Innate.flow. I love that.
I
I see what you did there. Innate. Nate, I got it.
Yeah,
well done.
You got that?
Yeah. Brother.
Yeah, so Nate, tell me one thing that someone can do tomorrow to start their day to kind of kickstart this new transition. Anyone like listening to this right now, what word of advice would you give them that tomorrow they could start doing something? What's that one thing somebody can do?
Learning to check in with your intuition is a big thing that has been a catalyst in my life. And a simple way that you can do that is feeling in, sitting down, closing your eyes, and if you have a decision that's hard for you to make, saying, body, show me what a yes feels like. And something is going to come up in your body that is, an expansiveness in your chest, or an opening in your belly, or a warmth, a tingling in your arms. And that's your yes. And then you're going to ask your body, show me what a no feels like. And usually for me, that's like an emptiness down in my root chakra, or in my groin area. And then ask yourself the question, body, is it in my well-being to eat eggs and bacon at 8 a.m. this morning? And you're either going to get a yes, that expansiveness, that tingling in your hands, whatever your yes is, or you're going to get a no. And you can do that for, really simple choices, or you can do that for really challenging choices. Body, should I quit my job in 6 weeks after I've saved the money and I've set this goal? Body, should I continue trying to work on things with my partner? Or, body, should I, figure out a way to compassionately end things with my partner? These things that are, either very simple choices or very challenging choices in our lives, really learning to tune in to our greater awareness of, connecting with our higher self to make decisions from an empowered place is a big thing that will enable us to lead lives that are in a greater place of authenticity. So that's a recommendation that I would bring to your listeners.
Love that.
Anthony, when you feel the tingling in your scoochal area, is that a yes or a no for you?
Scooch, yeah.
Is that a yes or a no?
Yeah.
Scooch, is that a yes or a no?
I take a dump. Yeah, that's
a hard yes. It's a yes. That's a big yes for you.
Oh yeah.
So to
listen to that one a lot of times.
The Scooch is your power center, Anthony.
That's right. The Scooch.
The Scooch is your power center.
Name of the podcast.
That's it. We'll always find it. So to find Building Men is building.men on Instagram, buildingmencoach at gmail.com. Our website is buildingmen.io. Keep an eye out for our retreat coming up April 29th through May 1st in Lake Tahoe, California, called The Hero's Journey, in collaboration with Austin Linney of Construct Your Life, Chase Tollison of the Primal Pathways podcast as well. So keep an eye out for those things. To Nate of House Baumgardner, the first of his name in the Ancestral journey, we truly appreciate you coming on the Building Men podcast. Go a step further than you thought you can go. We'll see you next time on Building Men.